As I've been preparing for the pilgrimage that I'll be leaving for later today, I began thinking about the previous pilgrimages I've been on in the past. And in the midst of so many wonderful experiences that I've reflected back on, I also recalled one really, really difficult time that came only after I'd returned home. It happened 3 years ago. Upon returning home from Rome, after I'd been away from the parish for 2 weeks, I, of course, immediately began thinking about all the things I had to catch up on. The voicemails I'd have to listen to, the mail I'd have to sort through, emails to respond to, the appointments I'd have with people who had been waiting patiently since I had been gone. And, of course, in the midst of all that, the day-to-day things that would just come up each day. I woke up the morning after coming back home feeling groggy and jet-lagged, but I was ready to hit the ground running. It didn't take long for me to realize something wasn't quite right. And not long after that, an official test from the doctor's office informed me that I had influenza A. Suddenly, all the plans that I had for my first week went out the window. I had stuff that I had to get done. None of it got done. I had places I had to visit. None of them were visited. And what was the hardest was I simply had things that I wanted to do. That would have been fun, catching up with friends, grabbing a bite to eat, even going to a conference that I had been looking forward to. None of those things I wanted to get done got done. Not a single one of them. Instead, I laid around on my own, doing nothing for an entire week. Think about that. Me, doing nothing for an entire week. It was miserable. And at first, all I could think about was how terrible I felt and how frustrated I was that I wasn't going to be able to do the things that I planned on getting done. It as the week progressed, I slowly realized that God had a different plan. And God wanted to use this time to teach me something. As I laid there in bed all day, every day, I began to realize that rather than focusing on all the things that I couldn't do, that in every single moment as I laid there, I was being given the opportunity to be present with God, to be aware of the fact that He was blessing me with this opportunity to focus on Him, rather than being distracted by everything else, to truly focus on Him, and how I truly wasn't alone like I had previously found myself sulking about. I was so frustrated that none of my plans were happening, and God cracked through to show me that everything was okay. That the world wasn't coming to an end, unlike what I thought, and that His plan, a plan that's always available to us, and that always brings about good for myself and for others, that this plan is always on the table to be chosen, even in the most difficult and debilitating of circumstances. I think this applies to all of us. We like being able to do what we want. We like knowing that things will go according to our plans and maybe even our dreams. And we like being in control and having things go according to plan. But we all know that life doesn't work that way. Life throws wrench into our plans more often than we'd like. The thing that I want to make so abundantly clear and that I beg you to take to heart is that in the midst of wherever you are right now and whatever it is that you're experiencing, whatever your circumstance or situation, God always has a plan. And He is constantly, at every moment, inviting you to take His hand and to trustingly follow. I'll be the first to admit it's not always easy, especially when you can't see where that road that He's inviting you to walk on is going to lead. But we need to trust, not because we know where it's going to lead, but simply because we know who it is that's leading us. Now, I'll tell you that the turning point for me, at which everything clicked and I canceled my pity party, it came when I prayed and started reflecting over today's beautiful story of Jesus' initial encountering, calling, and inviting His apostles, right, these strangers who would become His closest followers. Now, while the time, the place, and the circumstances are different than anything we'll experience, the reality is exactly the same in each of our lives. Exactly. Jesus finds them, as He encounters them, He finds them doing something that they knew how to do, something that they had trained to do, that they were comfortable doing, and that they had a firm grasp on. And He comes up to them and unexpectedly invites them to follow Him, to do something that they've never done before, that they don't know how to do and that they can't possibly understand. And they get up without hesitation and they follow. Hope you're able to see the connection between what they found themselves with and the situation I found myself in that day after I was sick. The only potential difference you might take note of is they got to choose their situation, to choose whether or not they'd get up and leave their comfort behind, whereas I didn't get to choose being sick. But in reality, I was still faced with a choice. The choice to resent my situation and stay where I was at, or to be willing to take Jesus' hand and let him lead me to where he wanted to take me, to accept his plan in that moment. And I'll admit right now that choosing to follow God's plan, it does not in any way guarantee that your immediate circumstances will change in the way you might desire or expect. But it does give a peace and a confidence right in the midst of this storm. It gives a confidence that there's a meaning, a purpose, and a reason for everything. And that most importantly, it gives you confidence that you're not alone in the struggle and that God will see you through it in a way that will bring about good in the end. What it all ultimately comes down to is this. Either God is God, and he has everything under control when it seems like things from our end are like chaos. Either God is God, or he's not. It's as simple as that, and those are the only two options. There is no middle ground. It doesn't make any sense to trust God's guidance and help for the little day-to-day things, but then to withhold trust when it comes to the big things that really matter. Yet, that's what we're all tempted to do. We can come to church, we can say our daily prayers, and we can hope and believe that God is with us, and that can help us along the way and give us confidence and stuff while, for our day-to-day lives. But then when things get really, really tough, and our plans aren't coming to fruition, we can sometimes begin to question and mistrust the whole thing. It's almost as if we have our plans and our ideas that we want to follow, and there are plans as to what degree and to what point we're going to trust God. But when it's all said and done, life is always going to challenge that notion. And we all will come to a point where we have to believe and follow, or to mistrust, remain where we are, and be left to fend for ourselves. I think all of us are here today for one of two reasons. Either it's because we've encountered the love of God, and we know it on some level, and we're on board, we're all in. Or we're here because we haven't had that moment yet, but we know that we need it, and we sense that it's there. We can sense that there's something more. Because God has written into each of our hearts that we've been made for union with him. As I said a moment ago, either God is God all the way, or he's not. And I think that for everyone who opens up their hearts in a true quest to find God, even if you open up your heart just the tiniest bit, that you will find that God is there waiting for you. Every time, he's there. And when you find him, you're going to hear him invite you, come, follow me. Let me tell you right now that the apostles who followed Jesus immediately, they didn't have any special knowledge or any background information that we aren't privileged to. In fact, we actually know far more about Jesus today than they did at that initial crucial moment in their lives. The reason why they got up is because they sensed that they should trust this man. And they sensed that they could trust him. This man who, they didn't know it yet, also happened to be God. So if you're sick, or if you're simply sick of things not going according to your plans, if life doesn't seem to go the way you want or the way you've planned, know that Jesus is calling. Jesus is inviting you lovingly right now in this very moment to trust him, to take his hand, to follow rather than fight against your circumstances, to be with him on this path and to follow where he leads, even if you're scared because you have no idea where it's going to go. Right now this morning, Jesus is calling. God is offering you an opportunity, lovingly and mercifully, he's offering you an opportunity to let him be God so that you don't have to carry the pressure of trying to be God yourself. Let God be God because he wants to, and you don't have to. Let him take the weight off your shoulders. Let him lead you. Let him carry you. And be not afraid to let your life go wherever it is that he wants to take you.